Okay, hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Archihacks portfolio episode. Today, we're going to talk about some of our best tips and tricks for portfolio making, whether that be for school, internship, or just personal keepsake. We have reviewed almost 100 portfolios from all of you guys so far, and we've seen some really great range of completion. Some people have gotten into some prestigious schools such as Harvard, Princeton, Yale, AA, and the consultations have also helped some people get into some prestigious companies such as Big and OMA. So if you're interested in more personalized tips, you can book a personal one-on-one session in the link in the description. And even if that's not for you right now, here are some of the most effective tips and tricks that we repeatedly give out to all the clients so that you can get the most out of it for now. So let's get started. Okay, my name is Ben. I'm an ex-Big and OMA employee, now working at content creation to help out all the students and professionals. If you're interested in upgrading your skills to the next level, then make sure to hit subscribe so you can see more videos like this in your feed. So that being said, today we're going to talk about some of the most common tips and tricks that we give out in our consultation sessions. The number one thing that we want to start off with is the page size. This is the question that we get all the time, and we're totally haunted by these messages like, "Hey Ben, what is the size of your portfolio? Like, can I ask you for the size of your portfolio? Like, what is the paper size that you're using?" And the answer is actually a little bit tricky. So let's think about the use cases for your portfolio. So number one case is obviously printing it, which is the most traditional type. And that means that you have to make sure your portfolio is fit to size to printable paper. So let's say if you're in North America, then I think letter size paper is most common. But if you're an Asian country, then it's probably more common that you get more A4 or A3 sizes. Those are probably more common on that part of the world. So check the local printer shop settings and then try to use that for your portfolio. But in this day and age, who really prints their portfolio anyways, right? Usually, it's more commonly done in PDF transfer. So if that is the case, you might want to optimize your aspect ratio so that you can fill up your portfolio in your reviewer's screen. And the computer screens actually do vary in sizes, but the most common ratio is 16:9 aspect ratio. So one example of that dimension is like 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, which is like the HD dimension. And if you scale it up in that proportion, then you should be able to fill up your portfolio in your whole screen. The reason why this is important is because no matter what size of paper you use, if this doesn't fit that proportion, then there will be that ugly black bar on the side or at the top and the bottom. So you're not going to be making the most use of the screen's real estate. So yeah, if you already know that you're going to be transmitting your portfolio via, let's say, issue or just PDF via email, then make sure your portfolio dimension is set to 16:9 aspect ratio. Okay, so that was a number one tip. Let's move on to the second one. Okay, and the second tip that we want to talk about is a little bit artistic and abstract, but I hope you guys will understand what I mean. And that is to establish a style. I know this is a slightly tricky thing, but I've seen time and time again, like really amateur level portfolios, they have like kind of really basic projects, but they have so much style. They have every single portfolio is different and they're so much fun to review. But as they progress through architecture school and like various internships, I see that styles slowly fade away. I'm totally guilty of this myself and I'm struggling to fight against it. But if you have your older portfolio and compare it to your new one, you'll probably know what I mean. So if you find that this is a case for you, let's say you're early in your career, then definitely try to find ways to adapt your own languages into the new projects that you're doing. And if you have already transitioned into, let's say, more standardized drawing sets and style, then look back to your older work and see what you might be missing now. And try to combine all this new gained knowledge about architecture and all the creativity that you had back in the days. Once you're able to combine them, you'll be able to create a lot more powerful and interesting portfolios for whoever that's reviewing it. So on our channel, we've already reviewed several portfolios with interesting styles. If you haven't watched them already, I strongly recommend you check them out. I'll link them in the description or on the top right corner right over here. Okay, and the third question that we get the most often is how many projects should I put in your portfolio? And this really depends as well, but I strongly recommend you put in at least 3 and maybe no more than, let's say, like 6 or 7. So the reason for the lower side is that in your portfolio, you probably want to display a wide range of skills. If you only have a few number of projects, then that's inherently limited. So if you have only like 2 or 3 projects, you probably can't show like more than 2 kinds of typologies, right? Residential, commercial, mixed use, high rise. I mean, we kind of have to step back and think about what portfolio is for. This is where you display what kind of skills you have and kind of tell a story about yourself. If the story that you want to tell is that you're well-rounded and you are able to adapt to different situations, then this is probably a good thing. And the reason why I tend to avoid having a lot of projects is that might actually make the portfolio a little bit too long. So this kind of bleeds into another question where people ask us like, how many pages should we have on our portfolio? And the quick answer to that is, depends again. So here are some use cases. So number one, if you're making one for archiving purpose, and maybe you have already finished your grad school, then it's not too uncommon for people to have portfolios that are hundreds of pages. I think I've seen up to like 200 pages portfolio. And a lot of graduate students have 100 plus pages in their portfolio. But these portfolios that you see online or on issue, they're not for applying to schools or work per se. Oftentimes, employers and schools are looking for shorter portfolios. They will probably tell you on their website, so if they do, follow that. But if there's no specification, then I strongly recommend you go with at least 20 pages and no more than 60. I think 60 is like upper cap. Let's try to aim for like 40 pages. I think that's like a good amount of length. And the moment you have like, let's say like 7 or 8 projects, each project only takes up a few pages. And that doesn't give us enough time to like really fully walk through the project and explain it. And by page, I mean like full spread is 2 pages, right? So if you have 8 projects, 40 pages, then you're spending 5. That's only like 2 spreads worth of explaining your project for each project. So that's not going to be enough time to go through the concept, development, the final result, section plan, elevation, and any kind of extra drawings that you want to put in. So keep that in mind and try to aim for that goal. Okay, next up is file size. So I'm a little bit iffy about this topic because a lot of employers and schools demand like you get your portfolio down to like 5 megabytes and they're not going to open it. But I personally think that those days have kind of passed at this point. Storage is becoming more and more affordable, and there are easier ways to transfer bigger files. Now, that doesn't mean that your portfolio can be like 100 megabytes or like a gigabyte size. That's going to be really inconvenient for the employer to read. So without compromising your quality, try to get it as low as possible, but don't be religious about 5 megabyte limit or 15 megabyte. If you kind of play around with the export settings on InDesign, you'll quickly find out that you can achieve a reasonable level of quality under, let's say, 30 megabytes. And if you continuously see that your portfolio is way too big, then try to go through each of your images and drawings and see which one is bulking up the file size. There's probably like 1 or 2 that's like taking up a lot. And once you spot those, try to compress them into like a smaller dimension or like flatten them into a JPEG image. Yeah, for example, like for my portfolio, I think I found one image that's like 10,000 pixels wide, and the moment I took that one into like a more reasonable size, the size of a portfolio PDF went down by like 20 megabytes. So try to find the culprit and eliminate them. Well, not eliminate them, but just fix them up a little bit, right? Okay, and our number 5 tip is that there is no right answer. Given all the tips that I've given you so far, you can break them if you think you have a good reason to do it. As with all arts, and this is something I say all the time and really cannot be overemphasized, I have seen a lot of cases where these tips and tricks I've mentioned so far are very applicable, but there's always that 10% or 20% of people who are expert at breaking these rules. So don't feel like all the tips I've talked about so far is perfectly the single source of truth. It's definitely not, and things might change down the road as well. So take all these things as a grain of salt, but what's important is that the thought process behind it. Like, let's think about like the paper size. Like, how did I come up with 16:9 ratio, right? That's because we transitioned from printed media to digital media. And if you're still stuck at like a printed media, you're gonna be wasting a precious screen real estate that you can use to show off more of your work. And also the number of pages and the number of projects that go in. And this is why I try my best to explain the reasons behind all the numbers. At least 20 pages to 60 pages, and more than like 2 or 3, but no more than 6 to 7. Once you understand the reasons, you see why that's happening. So if there are good reasons to break them, definitely go ahead, do it. But if you're totally lost, you're just making your portfolio for the first time, then follow these rules of thumb and you'll get 50% of your way there. And you will already greatly maximize your chance of achieving things that you're aiming for. Okay, so that's it for this video, but in case you didn't notice, we have Instagram and newsletter on our website. So these kind of tips and tricks come out a little bit sooner on those platforms. So if you want to get the latest information as soon as possible to your feed, check those out, subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll see you there. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.